Hey everybody, this is Trust and Obey with Chuck Frank, and this is a G drop for Friday, September 27th. And this G drop is titled The Beginning of Sorrows. So I got this email today from a guy named Isaiah, and the date on this email, it was marked as high importance and read receipt. But the date was from 2,700 years ago. And actually, if you want to read a copy of it, it's in the Bible. It's under the book of Isaiah, chapter 24. And it's actually a summary of what we're heading into. And a lot of people want to know what we're heading into. There's just so many unknowns and all kinds of predictions of a nuclear conflagration. And Isaiah is helping us out with an interesting explanation. So he titled his email, Impending Judgment on the Earth. Okay? That's the beginning of sorrows. And we're already in the beginning of sorrows. I think everyone can say that. When I listen to people, when I talk with people, they're all in the beginning of sorrows. So let's see what Isaiah is talking about. Behold, the Lord makes the earth empty and makes it waste, distorts its surface, and scatters abroad its inhabitants. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with the master, as with the maid, so with the mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the creditor, so with the debtor. The land shall be entirely emptied and utterly plundered, for the Lord has spoken this word. The earth mourns and fades away. The world languishes and fades away. The haughty people of the earth languish. The earth is also defiled under its inhabitants, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. So let's examine these five. He goes, the Lord's going to make the earth empty and make it a wasteland. And just for good measure, he's going to distort the surface. So it's not going to resemble the spherical earth that we've all studied in earth science spinning on its axis. It's going to be misshapen. I don't know how that's happening, but I would guess a nuclear conflagration might have something to do with it. And that's the direction that the Brotherhood of Benevolent Billionaires, who have purchased and compromised most of our leadership, they are pushing for this because they have already mitigated their risk. They've dug holes. They've got, let's take Mark Zuckerberg. He's got a $400 or $500 million cave that he's dug out for himself. That's his bug out place on Maui. And he's going underground for a year when the rocking and rolling starts. So we're going to talk about that because Isaiah actually addresses Mark's issues in this email. It says here, the land shall be entirely emptied and utterly plundered. Okay, and that's probably hard for a lot of Americans to imagine unless you live in Springfield, Ohio. God's given you a little microcosm of what your loving political leadership has in mind for all of us. It says, for the Lord has spoken this word. He spoke this word almost 3,000 years ago. He directed it to Israel because they were rejecting him and going into paganism and pedophilia and every kind of awful thing that is a part of our leadership class today. So when he speaks this, it was for them, and it's for us in almost October 2024. And October is going to bring you serious revelation on these issues in this email. Because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. He's basically saying, look, when Noah and his family got off the ark, I put a rainbow in the sky. And I told them, I said, listen, that rainbow is going to be a sign for you that I will never flood the earth again and wipe almost everybody out except for one family, and wipe out all the animals except for whatever you put on the ark. So we're going to start from here, and we're going to make a deal. I'm not going to drown the earth again. I didn't say I won't burn it to a crisp or misshape it, but I'm going to say to you that if you'll follow my rules, and here's the cardinal rule: I don't want you to shed the blood of other people, okay? Because they're made in my image. So when you decide to kill them, you're really killing a part of me, and I'm not going to be happy about it. So how did we do on that? Not too well. So that's why this covenant is broken. All right. Therefore, the curse has devoured the earth, and those who dwell in it are desolate. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned. Now, that's an interesting sentence. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned. That's a pretty solid sentence. It doesn't need more adjectives. But remember, 2,700 years ago, it was hard to even start a fire for a cooking fire. And this guy's talking about a conflagration where the majority of the population of the earth is burned up. He can't even imagine how that could happen, but he wrote it down very clearly, so there's no mistaking what he says the outcome is or why it's happening. But we have the benefit of having some knowledge of nuclear science. We know we got at least 4 or 5 countries that have nuclear arsenals, and when everybody gets going, they're going to be hitting all the buttons. So that could be a couple thousand nuclear warheads, all aimed at all kinds of places. And even Rocket Man, he's going to get into it. He's been testing these rockets. He's been firing them off. He's making his exclamation, but he never gets to do the real deal. So he's going to join in. China's going to join in. Russia, the U.S., and the neocons in our country are going to go, man, everybody head underground. Let everybody else sort it out up here. They're going to burn. That's exactly what this email's saying. It says, the curse has devoured the earth, and those who dwell in it are desolate. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men are left. The new wine fails, the vine languishes. All the merry-hearted sigh. The mirth of the tambourine ceases. The noise of jubilant ends. So no more NFL games, no more fun clubs. None of that stuff's going on anymore. That's all going to end. The joy of the harp ceases. They shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink is bitter to those who drink it. It means that the reality of life is so awful now that even if you grab the Jack Daniels, you can't get any anesthesia from it. The pain of what you have is still going to be in your face. And then it says, the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up so that none may go in. That's a pretty good description of Seattle in the summer of 20. Of course, that wasn't a violent anything, but this will be. Okay, what's coming? What's going to be kicked off with the rent-a-riots paid for by the Democrat Party, no matter who wins, because if Trump wins, they'll all be dressed in MAGA like the FBI people did for J6. So fake riot then, fake riot coming in November, and they'll riot and pose as MAGA, and the legacy media will say, it's all MAGA people. That's if Trump loses, or if Trump wins. If Trump loses, they're going to riot also and claim, I think I've mixed that all up. If Trump wins, they're going to riot against him because he's racist. That will be the story. If Trump loses, they're going to dress as MAGA and riot, and it'll be another big lie like January 6th. So this is all going deep south, and the blue cities, Isaiah couldn't know about blue cities, but the blue cities are the ones that are going to burn, and they're going to, it says the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up. So they're going to board up everything on the first and second floor. Why? Because everyone's going to be roaming the street, trying to break in, trying to get at the inhabitants, trying to get their assets, and trying to find something to eat. Every house is shut up so that none may go in. There is a cry for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. In the city, desolation is left, and the gate is stricken with destruction. It means there's no way to keep any of the bad stuff from happening. It's all going to happen unchecked. It's already starting to happen. If you're in New York, it's bad stuff happening unchecked. 100 murders in 400 days, and none of the people prosecuted? Good job. And now the mayor is going to be arrested. Even better. When it shall be thus in the midst of the land among the people, so it shall be like the shaking of an olive tree, like the gleaning of grapes when the vintage is done. What is he talking about? Again, 2,700 years ago, he's talking about the things in his culture, but they apply today. He's saying people are going to leave the cities because they're completely destroyed, and they're going to go out in the fields trying to find any morsel to eat. And he says, it's like the shaking of an olive tree. How did they harvest? They would wait till these olives were beautifully plump, and then they would grab the branches and shake them, and the olives would fall off, and they'd pick them all up, and then they'd cure them, right? So after that, there's only about 2 or 3 olives hanging on the tree, maybe up higher. They're not particularly tall trees anyway. So not much to eat there. And what does he say about the grapes? He goes, like the gleaning of grapes when the vintage is done. So when you're harvesting grapes, there's hardly any grapes left. They grow in bunches. There might be 2 or 3 in a section, but there's nothing to eat. That's what he's saying. That's how everything breaks down in our society. Okay? And that happens very quickly. There's no fuel to transport the stuff. There's no shipping coming in, and the shelves go bare, and all of a sudden, the majority of the people made no plans, and they're running around trying to find food, and they'll do anything to anyone to get it. It is a total breakdown of society. Unless you're a billionaire underground in your cave, Oprah will be down there, but if you ring her doorbell, she's not going to answer. And if you go to Mark Zuckerberg's doorbell, he's going to have some robot come and shoot you. So you're not going to get any compassion from these folks because they're in the middle of their dream that climate change will stop. 80% of the population of the earth will be gone, and they'll be in a dream fantasy. All right, let's continue. They shall lift up their voice. They shall sing for the majesty of the Lord. Who's he talking about? He's not talking about all these folks who are suffering. He's talking about the remnant of believers, because there is always a remnant of believers. And they're singing to the Lord for the majesty of the Lord. They shall cry aloud from the sea. Therefore, glorify the Lord in the dawning light, the new dawn, right? There's going to be a new earth. Jesus is going to return. All these wonderful things are going to happen, but first, a lot of bad stuff. Therefore, glorify the Lord in the dawning light, the name of the Lord God of Israel, in the coastlands of the sea. From the ends of the earth we have heard songs, glory to the righteous. And then he changes. And now he takes the voice of the people who didn't believe. They didn't believe. They didn't believe this email was right. They didn't believe that God was anything to pay attention to. They certainly didn't care about Jesus. And so what are they left with? He says, but I said, I am ruined. Ruined. Woe to me. Right? I made a lot of bad choices. And now it's too late. He goes, the treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously. Who's he talking about? He's talking about all the political leaders. He's talking about all the bankers. He's talking about all the public health people. He's talking about the Brotherhood of Benevolent Billionaires. He's talking about the World Economic Forum, the CDC, the WHO, the UN. All these people have dealt treacherously with the rest of us, right? All these folks that we trusted that had a fiduciary responsibility because they were taking the money out of our paychecks. They were our employees, and they were supposed to act in our best interest. And instead, they want to destroy us. They're looking for genocidal plans, and they showed it all to us in 2021. It says, the treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously. Indeed, the treacherous dealers have dealt very treacherously. He emphasized that. He's saying, you have no idea how bad your leaders are. They're not just bad, they're incredibly bad. And guess what? We're going to start finding all that out soon. It says, fear and the pit and the snare are upon you, O inhabitant of the earth. And it shall be. This is the part of the email that's for Mark and Oprah and so many who have a plan for this conflagration, right? And they do have a plan. They're going underground for a year. So he describes this in his vernacular from 2,700 years ago. And it shall be that he who flees from the noise of fear, what's he talking about? Rioting, chaos, people killing one another just to try to get something to eat. That he who flees from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he who comes up from the midst of the pit, right? It's funny that all these people, including our leaders, they've all got this underground thing. And he describes it as a pit because he has no idea what these things are. They didn't exist in his time. So they go into the pit, and then they come up out of the pit, and they shall be caught in the snare. So all the Brotherhood of Benevolent Billionaires are going underground for a year. They figure we're all toast. We're all going to die, nuclear poisoning, burning up, all of it. We're going to starve to death. They'll wait a year, then they'll come up, and it'll be a panacea. We'll all be gone. And it'll be theirs. No more climate change, right? So they'll be caught in the snare, for the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth are shaken. The earth is violently broken. The earth is split open. The earth is shaken exceedingly. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard. Okay, 2,700 years ago, right? They didn't even come up with the earth is flat yet. And this guy's trying to describe what's happening. He's talking about a planet that is no longer spherical, right? That can no longer spin on its axis. So he's describing it as like a drunkard wobbling. It's wobbling, okay? It can't wobble for long, right? The gravitational pull of all the other planets are going to pull it in all different kinds of ways, and it's going to be terrible. Okay, the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall totter like a hut that's about ready to fall in on itself. Its transgression shall be heavy upon it, and it will fail and not rise again. It shall come to pass in that day that the Lord will punish on high the host of exalted ones, and on the earth the kings of the earth. So there's two groups that he's singling out for serious punishment. One is spiritual beings up in heaven. So all of the professional people who talk for a living that you see in the media, they're saying to you, this is not going to be solved politically. This is a battle between good and evil. And here in Isaiah's email, he's telling you that. He's saying that there is a host in heaven that God's going to deal with. He has his own conflagration. In this book, it says we battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air. Right? That's what's going on up in heaven. He said, shall come to pass that the Lord will punish on high the host of exalted ones. Right? These are beings that we never see. And on earth, the kings of the earth. That's all the leadership and the wealthy and everyone who has planned our destruction. He is coming to punish them. They will be gathered together as prisoners and gathered in the pit and will be shut up in the prison. After many days, they will be punished. Well, Nancy Pelosi's already concerned about that. You can say every time she's on camera, she's shaking and jiving and, why are you even talking about this? Yeah, because it's on her mind and she knows she's going down. Last verse. Then the moon shall be disgraced and the sun ashamed. What's that mean? The moon will be disgraced. The moon's going to look red. And the sun ashamed. The sun is going to be darkened. For the Lord of hosts will reign on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem and before his elders gloriously. Because God's going to take control of this whole thing. And at some point in that day, Jesus Christ returns. And then eventually the earth is done. And there's a new earth and a new Jerusalem. So there's no stopping that stuff. It's all going to happen. The question is when. And not my business to predict when, but I can tell you that if you study the Bible, you can see that God will postpone things for a while if we will do what he asks. And what he asks is simple, right? He asks us to do 4 things. He says, if you'll do these 4 things, which you're perfectly capable of doing, if you will use your free will and do them. And if you'll do those 4 things, I'll do 3. I'll do 3 that are majors. You do 4 that are minors. Okay? Minor and major here. This is what we call the 4-3. First, humble yourselves. Okay? And I put Christians at the front of that. People who call themselves Christians are the largest voting bloc in the United States. And over half of them don't vote because they're too arrogant. They think they're above it. And they're going to answer to God for that because we would not be in this situation if they had voted just based on biblical principles. So the first thing is humble yourself. You can't get to the solution if you're arrogant. The second, pray. So humble yourself and pray. That means dialogue with God. That means tell him everything you're concerned about. That means thank him for every good thing that he's done for you in your life. Okay? Pray to him. It says, without ceasing. That means on little things and big things, keep that dialogue going. Not to the point of distraction, just to the point of acknowledgement. And then the third thing is seek my face. What does that mean? You can't see God and live. So what does he mean, seek his face? It means look for me in all the events of your life, the littlest things and the biggest things. Look for me. If you humble yourself and you pray and you start looking for me, you'll start seeing me in the events of your life, small and large. And then the last thing, number 4, turn from your wicked ways. Whatever you're doing that you know is bad, knock it off, okay? Especially if it's something that's more important to you than a relationship with God. So these are 4 things that you can do. Humble yourself, pray, seek God's face, and turn from your wicked ways. Now, this is a promise from God. He says, if you do those 4 things, I'll do these 3 majors. 1, I will hear from heaven. What's he going to hear? Your prayers. So you have to be praying if he's going to hear from heaven. 2, I will forgive your sin. You have to confess it and knock it off, and I will forgive it. And 3, if you do those things, I'll hear your prayer, I'll forgive your sin, and I will heal your land. Now, that's the only solution that we have. We don't have a political solution. We don't have a military solution. All we have is bloodletting. That's the only thing that's going to happen. So, there's no stopping what's coming, but we can postpone it by doing these 4 things and then watching God do the 3 that he's promised. Otherwise, the whole shebang is going pretty quickly. The whole shebang.